one of the things that's really important to talk about is the difference between news journalism, hard journalism or investigative journalism, and opinion journalism. So obviously, so I said at the very beginning when at the first class that we had that I used to be the entertainment editor of my high school newspaper. So I would go to shows or listen to albums, and then I would review them by sharing my opinion about the music that I was listening to. So I was reporting news, but it wasn't hard news or investigative news. It was opinion journalism. It was my opinion about things that I was listening to or seeing. And opinions are totally valid, but they are not the same thing as hard news. And so we want to make sure that we understand the difference. So I'm just going to share with you guys a quick video that kind of goes into this in more detail. So here we go.
So what exactly is bias? News media bias is when opinions favoring one side of an issue or event skew news reporting in a way that is unfair or distorting. First, let's make an important distinction between news that aims to be impartial and other content that obviously expresses a point of view. A lot of the information we encounter every day is not news, and it's not trying to be impartial. Movie and book reviews, games, ads, and even most of your friends' social media posts are created with a point of view, and they aren't meant to be unbiased. Not even all journalism aspires to be unbiased. Opinion columns, newspaper editorials, and political commentary on TV try to persuade you to agree with them. Opinion journalism is supposed to express a point of view, to provoke discussion. News journalism, however, isn't meant to persuade us. It's supposed to inform us. This kind of reporting needs to be produced fairly and accurately and should include a range of voices. It should not include the voice of the reporter. The primary purpose of this type of story, a straight or hard news story, is to provide an accurate representation of issues and events. That means presenting the relevant facts in as straightforward, clear, and impartial a manner as possible. That way, the audience can draw their own conclusions without being swayed by the individual journalist's point of view. When gathering information and reporting news stories, journalists follow standards designed to strip away the influence of their own conscious or unconscious biases. After all, who among us can be truly objective? We're humans with different backgrounds who bring different perspectives to the table, and we're all fallible, no matter how rigorous our process. But one thing we all can and must be as journalists is impartial in the way we gather and present facts and information. Many people, adults as well as students, confuse commentators, columnists, and other opinion journalists with news reporters. They aren't the same. Most news organizations have both news and opinion journalists, but it's only the news reporters who are supposed to be unbiased. In fact, the opinion staff and news staff report to different bosses. At many news organizations, the news and editorial staff are physically separated and might even work on different floors.
Okay, so the main point with this is that some of the news that you see on a news show, for example, is going to have journalists that are talking about issues that are happening in the country, things that are happening politically, that they're doing research, they're investigating, they're doing interviews with people on the street, they're getting their stories, they're getting information from people. Other news stories are reporting on, things that are happening and reporting on opinions. And opinions are totally fine, but it's important to distinguish between the two. So what we're gonna have you guys start off with today is practicing creating a video about your opinion on something. So just any opinion that you have that you hold really strongly, and you're gonna try to persuade people with your video. So in order to do that, you are gonna go to this link. So it's flipgrid.com/UNews2020 and record a 30-second video that includes an opinion that you have. So for example, I could say, cats are so much better than dogs. They don't have to take baths. You don't have to take them for walks. You don't have to pick up their poop on the street and they poop in a litter box. They're amazing and furry and soft and wonderful. And that could be my video, okay? So that's the first video I want you to make. When you go to flipgrid.com/unews2020, you'll be able to see all of the different assignments here. If you go to your video challenge, so this is your first video challenge is opinion journalism. And so you're going to record your video by pressing the green plus button down here, and then you'll have 30 seconds for your opinion video. When you're done with that, if you click over here where it says 3 topics, you can choose news journalism. And now, after you've done your opinion piece, I want you to also do a piece where you investigate or you include some actual statistics and data to back up your opinion. So this should be on the same topic, but this one is going to include at least 2 different perspectives. It should include maybe some statistics or information, some data to help back up your opinion. And also, it shouldn't be about you and what you think. It should be about what is true. So you're not going to use I statements or we or me. You're going to say, according to a study, shows that 30% of cat owners are extremely happy with their cat. That's information that has a statistic, it has some data, it has something that can back it up, right? And I'm not talking about, I think cats are cute. You're talking about, here's information that we were able to find out from people, okay? So that is your mission. You're gonna have some time to work on that. And again, with this one, you'll just press the plus button and you'll be able to add your, and when we come back, that's when we'll start talking about putting together a new show with different segments. But we are going to talk about different segments in a news show. So we're gonna skip forward. And so one of the things I wanted to show you guys was just a clip from a news show that we did record with young people at this point, I think 4 summers ago. So I'm gonna share my screen and show you guys and we're not going to watch the whole video here, but we are going to look at some of the different segments that they worked on. And then we're going to give you some examples of different news show segments. So this is the Villains News Network. We worked on this a few years ago. So this is a little older.
Hello and welcome to VNN, the Villains News Network. We are your hosts, Carol and Christelle Momami.
Today's top story is about the Green Line extension and how it will affect the neighborhood of Union Square. Rory, Owen, and Anik went to learn more.
We went to the Somerville Community Corporation to speak with members of Union United and find out what they thought about the Green Line extensions.
So Union United is a coalition of residents and businesses and organizations in Union Square that is fighting to make sure people don't get displaced when the Green Line comes in and Union Square is redeveloped. So we want to make sure that people are educated about what's happening in the community and get to have a voice in the new development that's going to shape the future of Union Square.
So how do you feel about the new Green Line?
Well, the Green Line is going to bring transportation and bring people in, and it's going to allow people to get jobs outside of Somerville. And so we're trying to tie the development to local jobs so that people will be able to take the transportation that's coming in and use it as an opportunity.
Do you think the Green Line will cause more displacement?
It will bring some good and bring some bad stuff too. Some displacement, so the local people will move because their rent raise and the land raise. So that will make a big bad impact on.
So I'm going to pause there. So this is an example of an investigative news story, or a news story that they're interviewing people in the community about their perspectives. They're not including their own perspectives, but they're asking people from multiple different from different experiences to share their opinion. So then they
to
go
business
even
or
on the
a
street.
home, and even low-income homeowners are not benefiting from displacement. And we want to make sure that actually those people who are most vulnerable to displacement get to be at the table to talk to the developers and tell them what they need.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We also want to speak with local businesses to find out their opinion. How can the Green Line extensions affect your business and your restaurants?
I think that's a good question. I think it will affect us by bringing in more customers that don't drive. It'll be easily accessible for them to get here. And it will just help the city altogether, I think.
Okay, so we're going to pause here. So this is where we now get into adding different opinions and different perspectives by going and investigating, by asking the people who are affected by these decisions for their opinion. So they go to the record store, they go to the restaurants, and they have all of these different interviews to kind of help explain the full story. So that is not an opinion piece. This is actual news. And there's some other really cool news segments in here that we can check out. But what that is an example of is a news package. So a news package might be something that you choose to do. And you might choose to work with some other kids to work on a news package about a story that's important to you. So during April vacation, we did stories on coronavirus. So we did stories on how young people were coping with coronavirus at home, or how, kids, or how like schools were going to deal with coronavirus. And we did a whole story actually about fake news about coronavirus and how dangerous it was. So those were really important stories. And that could be something that you guys want to do for our news show. So you might decide that you want to do a video news package where you investigate something or you interview people who are affected by a decision. So that could be a direction that you want to go in. But there's other ways that we can do news. So we have news segments, and then you also have your news anchors, right? So you noticed at the beginning, the anchors introduce themselves, they introduce the top story, they hosted the show. So that's important too. And we're gonna definitely need news anchors for our show. So Jade, I don't know if you want to chat to talk about these different examples of the different types of segments that we can have on a news show as well. So you have the option to do a news package, which is something that we just watched, or you have the option to do something like this, which is a news segment. So Jade, do you have anything you want to say to introduce this part?
Yeah, basically just stating the difference. A news package has interviews, so you interview people. And then a news segment is where you're by yourself, not by yourself, but you're reporting on something that's important to you. Like I have examples of like sports or celebrities or the weather, and then you pass it off to another person. So a segment is interviews and anchors, and then a segment is like, kind of by yourself and passing it off. But this is a sports one.
Cool. And you can also do this with another person, so it doesn't have to be solo, but absolutely Jade is correct. So if you notice with the news packages, you have interviews with people and you have B-roll, which is footage of the stuff happening that you're talking about in the interview. But news segments typically involve just one or two people staring straight at the camera and reading from a script about a topic.
Yeah, these ones also have B-roll too, because sometimes it's very hard to stay interested in someone just completely staring. And when I was doing newscasts for my school, I also had to do B-roll too. So these all have like B-roll in them.
And we'll talk more about what B-roll is for sure next week. So here's an example of a sports newscast.
Now, CBS News 8 Sports.
I'm Cody Sheaver with your CBS 8 Sports Update. It was a great day of college football nationwide today. The San Diego State Aztecs matching up with the Hawaii Warriors tonight. The Aztecs started the night leading the Mountain West Division with a record of 2-1 in conference play. Coming off a win last week against New Mexico, San Diego State looks to win back-to-back games for the first time this season. The Aztecs marched right down the field on the first drive of the game. 10 plays, 85 yards. Donnell Pumphrey touchdown up the middle. The Aztecs kicked a field goal on their second drive, then couldn't get anything going. In the final seconds of the first half, Hawaii throws up the Hail Mary. Ikaki Woosley airs it out. The Aztecs try for the pick instead of batting it down. Touchdown Warriors. And it's
Okay, I'm going to pause there, and I just want to see if people have things that they notice about this, like anything that you notice about the way he's reporting it or what he's reporting on. Yeah, Natalia.
I noticed that the B-roll, rather than him being in sync with the B-roll is kind of in sync with what he's saying. So basically, when someone's saying something, your B-roll has to be relevant to exactly what's happening at that point. So if he's talking about the Aztecs and them playing college football, then obviously there's going to be a clip of that happening.
Exactly. So for any of these stories or segments that you're going to do, you're going to have a script, which is your A-roll. That's the stuff that you're saying, or in the case of your news package, maybe it's an interview that you have with someone. So that's the information that is being communicated is your A-roll. And then your B-roll is the background footage or the videos that show and demonstrate what they're talking about in the A-roll. And this is kind of hard. We're going to talk more about this next week if that gets confusing, but that's the main building block to any news story or news segment is A-roll and B-roll. And that's a really good point, Natalia. I was like getting bored because it was like he was just saying so much information really quickly. And he wasn't very enthusiastic about it. I wouldn't say he was like the best newscaster. It was a little bit boring and like low energy. So that makes a big difference too.
I also picked him because he kind of messed up at the beginning. This was like an example of kind of like not a bad newscast, but one where it wasn't as interesting. He says his name at the beginning and then he'll say the exact same thing at the end too. So I just wanted to point out that we're highly encouraged to only say our names in the station that we work for at the very end. You open up with something exciting. He kind of was just very bland, which I was going to point out too. So yeah.
Cool. Nice. Okay. Anybody else have thoughts on this one? We're going to move on. All right. This is an example of entertainment. So this is an entertainment. This is a story about, or a news segment about things that are happening with famous people. And that's still news. Here we go.
We want to turn now to a story making headlines overseas and right here at home. Actress Winona Ryder coming to her ex-fiancé Johnny Depp's defense in his court battle against a British tabloid. Ryder saying she was, quote, shocked, confused, and upset by allegations he was abusive towards his ex-wife, Amber Heard. Maggie Rulli has more.
This morning, Winona Ryder's calling her old friend and one-time fiancé, Johnny Depp, a really good man. Ryder coming to her ex's defense as Depp is suing the publisher of The Sun over an article that called him a wife-beater, something The Sun says is accurate and Depp denies. In a statement obtained by the BBC, Ryder says she cannot wrap her head around the allegations, adding, I do not want to call anyone a liar, but from my experience of Johnny, it is impossible to believe that such horrific allegations are true. I find it extremely upsetting knowing him as I do. The two stars have been a part of each other's lives for nearly 30 years. In the early 90s, a 26-year-old Depp proposed to Ryder after just 3 months, heating up.
Okay, we're going to pause there. Assume he said his name. They said their name at the end. But he's way more, both people involved in this, both reporters are way more animated. Even like it's a little bit overly dramatic. Did you guys notice that there was like a little whoosh, like one of those big wipes where it goes from one scene to the next or one picture to the next and it gets very dramatic? That's another thing that's really common with entertainment news, where it's like dramatic picture, dramatic quote, dramatic, transition from one scene to the next. Lots of different editing effects to make it seem more exciting. Because this is a lot of times what gets people to tune into the news is stuff about celebrities. And we could argue whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it is a very popular type of news. And so a lot of times people use these different tricks to get people to stay invested in it and stay excited about it. Did anybody else have something they wanted to add?
Yeah. I noticed that it's very similar, but also very different from the last one. Similar in the sense that there is B-roll, but like you said, it's more dramatic and also different just because of what the topic is about. But I also noticed that in the editing, the news anchor who was reading what Winona Ryder quoted, it was written on the screen as well, which kind of plays more into the visuals.
Yeah, and it makes sure that like you're not misquoting the person, right? So if you're talking about celebrities, it's really important that you have accurate quotes, because if you just took a part of the quote, then maybe you could make it seem like they were saying something else, and then that would be misleading. That would be biased. That would be trying to persuade someone of something. So even with this, we still are trying to report facts. So we're trying to report actual quotes that were said by these celebrities, so that they can't come back and say, I never said that, and argue about it, right?
There was also a picture of her next to the quote, and that kind of like associates with what's being said to her. So it's kind of like tying the two things together to make it more realistic.
Yeah, and they used a bunch of B-roll, lots of pictures of the two of them together, B-roll of Winona speaking at other events. So we'll show you how to find B-roll. There's stock images and stock footage that you can find online, but that's another example of just using B-roll to keep the show, keep the content entertaining, keep the content interesting. Okay, and then we have the weather, which
This next one, it's literally just a weather forecast. I just picked it to show that when you do weather specifically, that's where you stand up, you get to move around a lot, and I just wanted to show that there's visuals that come with it, but it's literally just a straight weather newscast. But just showing that you can use a green screen, you can like choose your background, and you point to where stuff is and stuff. So it's like a more active newscast.
Does anyone like really want to do the weather? Is anybody like really excited about the possibility? Who said that?
Sebastian.
Oh, nice. Oh, Bart the farmer, do some farm weather. That'd be cool. I love it. Okay, well then all you need to do is get a blank background behind you, even if it's not green, and we can edit in the weather. We can totally have you do a weather report.
Yeah, that's another thing too. When you record, you want like a blank background always with the visuals.
I might not, but I can try.
That'd be really fun. Awesome. So we talked a little bit about all of these different videos and the different styles. Yeah, in the second one, some of the pictures were repeated. So that's an example of they probably didn't have enough B-roll. So they had to keep using the same photos over and over again, which you can totally do.